Hi and welcome to the Studio Marco Primeau. This week we're doing something a little different. We're gonna test a plugin for Davinci Resolve. So images instead of sound, it's going to be a bit different. So let's dive in right away. Before we begin, I should say that Dehancer sent me a license and they asked me to do a review, and it was specified honest review in the email, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. You should know I'm not a filmmaker, and those real stuff in films and magnetic and I don't know much about this, so it's going to be new for me. I did try to do a first look at the software, but actually it was so complex that I needed to go through the functions and realize what they do a little bit before doing this video, because the video was going to be very long. So I'm gonna use some footage from my Canon R7 and also the Canon M50. You'll see why while doing the tests. So let's go to the screens and I'm gonna comment step by step what I do. So let's go. All right, let's start by importing some footage. This comes from my Canon R7 and it was recorded in C-Log. All right, this is how I normally process my footage. Of course, C-Log is very flat, so I'm gonna act on this first. And I'm checking the scopes. The waveform gives me a bit of an idea of the ideal luminosity and colors. Add another node, add some colors. And I like to check if my skin tone is okay. Shift H. Then I'm gonna change for the vector scope. This is my skin line, so I'm right on it. Nothing to change there. Shift H, and I'm gonna deactivate the selection. I could probably boost the colors a tiny bit more. So one last thing, another node and some sharpness. Let's see. This video will be the first. Okay, I'm gonna mute the audio. All right, this seems like what I would use to send to YouTube. So let's now try to use Dehancer to make the color grading. You can load the plugin Dehancer directly on the footage on the timeline, but I prefer going into color and put it in the node so it's easier to control. So when I did the install, I only clicked on next and kept the default settings, and good thing it goes directly to the right spot, so Davinci Resolve recognize it, so you can find it in your effects at the end. Just drag it on the node, and already we have some difference on the image. So the first thing we need to do is to choose the input format. I like that there's a choose camera here, but sadly my camera is not in the list. Canon, there's no R7, M50, R5 and R6 are there. So I wish that Dehancer would add more compatibility here. We'll see in the future. So since it's not there, I'm gonna choose Cineon Film Log, which is a bit near of what Canon does, and the color space is larger than other choices, so that's why I'm choosing this. Of course, the colors are all wrong now, but we need to go to the second step, which is choosing the film. Every magnetic tape and every camera makes a difference on the color and how they react to light. So that's why you need to choose the right one. What is good is that you can scroll. If you choose one, you can just let your cursor on it and scroll, and it will change. Okay. So my first idea is to choose something that looks a bit natural from the get-go, so I won't have much more work to do afterward. And with the tests that I made, the Fujichrome Provia 100F gives me some natural look, so I'm gonna start with that. If we go full screen, all right. Since there's a lot of noise right now, I'm gonna deactivate it for now, and we're gonna go there later on. So let's go to film grain and remove the enable. As you see, there's a lot of settings, and for someone like me that does not know much about those settings, it's a bit overwhelming. So I wish that Dehancer would add a novice version or some templates, something to help the beginner. That could be nice to have. So what is very interesting about film is that you have some compression on the colors and stuff like that. So that's why they did put the first thing here, and see the difference right away. Some white parts are getting more colors, and then it's easier to boost them and not overload the image. You can play with the tonal range, color density. Does not make a lot of difference now. Impact. After that, the expand lets you set the black point and the white point. And to help us, I can change it to waveform. You see my skin is a bit too bright, so I'm gonna lower it a tiny bit, like this. Would be more natural. As I understand it, the print section is what the final media would do to the footage. So if it goes back to tape or another media, maybe the colors will change. So you still get another chance to change the saturation and stuff like that. And there's some differences. Let's see if it goes to this kind of film. Then you see all the colors change, and you can change the color density and stuff like that. I'm gonna keep it linear, so I don't really need this because I'm gonna keep it in the digital world, so I'm gonna deactivate it. Color head, that's where you may make some changes. If the color balance isn't right, you can gang those and enable first, of course. And you can change the balance, or just one like this. Okay, so maybe you want to be creative at this point. For me, like I said earlier, I'm looking for a natural look, so I'm gonna keep it like that. Then the film grain, I'm gonna reactivate it. I can't remember in my youth ever seeing an image on screen with that much noise. So that's a bit too much by default. We can reduce it, the amount. Film resolution. Remove some in the shadow, remove some in the mid-tones, remove some in the highlights. That's a bit better now. See the difference? And if you want it to be very subtle, I discovered that you can change this film type negative to positive, and now it starts to look a bit more natural. All right. If you look at it full screen, all right. I don't really know what halation means. You can fiddle with the settings. The color can change. Amplify will give you more stuff like that. Bloom reminds me of old love movies in the 70s, and let's try it. You'll see what I mean. All right, this is too much, but gives you an idea of what kind of image it gives. All right. Deactivate it. Vignette, I don't really care. I would do it in the camera, but if you need it, that's a good thing. Film breathe, as I understand it, would be giving some variation in the colors and how the image is captured along the way. Let's say if the magnetic tape was exposed to light before, or it's an old tape or something like that. So we can try it. The period would mean the speed at which you see the changes. Let's put it on the extreme, and let's see. It can be handy if you're making a movie that needs a retro look. So that's interesting. I'm gonna remove it. Gate weaves would make your image shake. So the same thing, I'm gonna put it to the extreme. Enable. So this is interesting to me because I'm always filming myself alone on a tripod. So this might simulate a handheld footage. So I will probably use it often. This was too much anyway. Let's remove some, maybe like this. Okay. After that, we get monitor, so you can change what you see. It helps with the colors, clipping indications. Output, this is the blending of the total effects. So if you want to remove some, okay. All right, after all this, I think we need to work on the colors a bit more. So we're gonna go back on the top, and there's a temperature and a tint compensation. On the vector scope, we can see that our white point seems to be a bit far off. So we're gonna try to change that. Okay, that seems more like it. And then we can work on the skin tone. Let's put more contrast. Black point, white point. Not much more than this. Let's add another node and select the face. Okay, the skin tone is not bad. If I had to change it, maybe we can go right here and rotate the hue, you'll see. All right, and maybe like this. Yeah. All right, one last thing, another node, and we'll do like we did on the other footage. Let's listen. Okay, let's compare this footage with the other, which I did manually. That's interesting. The colors are very similar. But see the film compression, what it does? There's less shadows and harsh shadows actually. Yeah. One critical thing for me is what it looks after it's uploaded to YouTube. Then we're going to capture what VP9 compression from YouTube does to that footage, and we'll see if it gives great results or not. All right, in conclusion, this is a very complex software for somebody like me that doesn't know anything about filmmaking. But I'm pretty sure those that do filmmaking will fit right in with all those settings, stuff that they already know what they do. But even so, even if I'm only a YouTuber and posting to YouTube and some little projects here and there, I think that the software is interesting. There should be a simplified menu and some templates maybe. But other than that, if you try and know a bit what everything does, there's some very interesting things like making the image shake as is someone is holding the camera up. That's a plus. I'm gonna use that. And the compression that film does is very interesting too. My images are very contrasty, so it makes a difference there. So I'm going to certainly use it. Thanks for the answer. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click on the like button, consider subscribing, hit the bell to get notifications. Go in the description, there's some link to buy some projects, including Dehancer if you want, if it's interesting to you. And put questions in comments, in the comments, suggestions for future videos. This is my first video with Dehancer, and I'm gonna go back to it in a few weeks and tell you what I think about it and if I still use it and what I like and I don't like. So stay tuned for that.